And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thank you so much for joining us on another news review. And it's great to have back once again with us many times as Betty. Thank you, Betty, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Not all. So much to discuss, and always enjoy your Twitter feed. That's what people can get if they jump on California Frizz, and they can find lots of information on news, but also your thoughts. And I love your long threads of your things to think about, because I think often you get caught up in the news and the madness and the craziness of nonstop media. And it's nice, I think, as you do often, to put those long posts where you actually think about things in a different way.
Yeah, I just think it's good to mix up the doom and gloom. There's so much doom and gloom on there when I scroll. So I'm like, do I add to this or do I change it up a bit? So
exactly. I agree. Well, this was one post you put up, and it kind of gives people a flavor. When I was young, I was expecting flying cars in 2024, not 72 genders. I couldn't agree with you more. We may not stop at 72 with Keir Starmer, but anyway, I guess 72 is a starting point.
That was me trying to kind of prep people for what's to come. Yeah, I do try and put a bit of sense of humor and the memes. I love memes. I get so much joy out of memes, especially when they're quite brutal. I'm like, ouch, but that's great. I'm sharing that. So yeah, I do love a good meme, and you'll definitely find some funny ones and some hopefully like quite philosophical ones on my thread as well.
Oh, you definitely get ones to think, and memes are powerful. I think Bob Moran has really shown that, and some I've seen and thought, I don't know about that, but yeah. Hey, it's telling the story, and I get that, but
yeah.
I don't know, and it should be on the edge.
Yeah, sometimes I think that when we need to say something, a meme just says it all, instead of doing like an actual post about it and getting all political about it. Sometimes just putting a meme that is straight to the point, it's like, yep, she's got a point.
Absolutely. Well, we've had election, and we'll get into those results and the dark cloud that is Labour and what silver linings we can see in that. And I think there are a number. But maybe here's some of the candidates that we've had. And here we have this was the Green Party. Still makes me laugh. This is the 2024 Green Party coalition. I think on the left was I think it was local election candidate actually, but I saw a number that have got voted in, number of independents, and Gaza is the issue which they think they should campaign on in the United Kingdom, and that was on the right, which is a Green Party candidate, and I actually didn't know whether that was real, so I went to hunt for the picture and found out it was. But I think the Green Party bring a level of madness to the conversation, fitting in with your 72 genders.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I don't know much about the Green Party. However, I did see that video that kind of went viral, with the person on the left, the guy on the left at the local election. And I actually thought when I first saw it that it wasn't in the UK. I thought it was elsewhere because of what he was ranting about. It was nothing really to do with anything in the UK. And then he ended it, I remember, with Allahu Akbar. And I actually remember after watching that thinking, okay, so I haven't actually learned anything about your policies, like what you stand for, why you've been voted in. So still to this day, I don't know what he actually is about. All I know is that he was just ranting and Allahu Akbar. Literally, that's it. So please educate me, Peter, because I don't really know what they stand for. And I find it a little bit scary that these people are voted in to stand on, local residents and local people, local businesses' behalf. And I don't actually know anything about them. I don't even know his name. I have no idea.
actually the interest, and I will touch on the gender one on the right, but actually on the left, I think Martin Dobney put up that there were 4 independent candidates who got elected, because we don't do independent candidates in the UK, and all 4 were from the Yorkshire area. All 4 were Muslim and got voted in on a Muslim ticket. And he can one of them in Batley. The Muslim population is 40%, and he got a 40% vote share. And you kind of see that tribal voting, which is quite concerning, because we've never had that in the UK. And for 4 individuals to be elected on a Muslim ticket is really a concern, I think, of where we're heading demographic wise.
Very. I think that's an important point, actually, the demographic. But it's that, what can we do about it?
We can breed.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a major important thing that we do, but it's also quite. It just makes you realise how it's really not actually fair, I think, these elections. And I think we all know that it's never quite legit and straight down the line, with voting and with people, getting in and stuff. Because like what we've seen recently as well, this week, with Reform getting 4 million and Lib Dems 3.3 or 3.1, I can't remember exactly what it was. Yet the one that had less million of votes got 71 or 72 seats, and then Reform got 4. It's like, how does that work when they got 4 million? I don't know. Politics.
Well, let's bring that up, because this is what Martin Dobney had put up. And Reform 4 million, got 4 seats. Lib Dems 3.5 million, 71 seats. And I'm trying to work out, there seems to be a disconnect. So Lib Dems have done exceptionally well. They went up from 12, I think, to 71, despite Ed Davis's best efforts. They actually have done well. And Reform actually got 5 seats. They got the last one in, I think it was at Thurrock, with a 75 or 80 vote majority. I mean, I think it's the smallest majority in the UK. And I think on the 3rd recount, he got in. But it is that, because if Reform, 4 million, which is what, 15%, or 14.3%, if that was spread across Parliament, then that would be 90 seats, and that would be a fair representation.
So how has it not worked out like that? I thought it was, when I saw that, I thought to myself, I don't really understand politics. I shouldn't really get involved. But I couldn't understand how the numbers didn't add up with the seats. So, but then I thought maybe it's, I don't know, it's to do with the areas and, how many people, and I don't know, but it just doesn't seem right. And this is where I lose faith in the whole system. And I just don't believe in the system, because I feel like it doesn't really matter who you put on your form. They're going to put who they want as the man to stand, who they want to represent us. And I don't want Labour. I don't want Keir Starmer to represent me. I didn't elect him. I didn't vote for him. And I just think it shows how corrupt the system is when you see that. So 4 million is a lot. And I think that they underestimated how many people would actually vote for Reform. And I think that it just shows how it's not legit. The system is not. You're not going to get what you think you're going to get. When you're voting and you think, yep, this is all going to be counted, it's all going to be fair. It's not.
No, I agree 100%. And let me bring this.
I just don't trust any of them.
No, the same. And if you bring this is slightly larger, and you see Labour with 410 seats, with 9.6 million, so 33% of the vote. Conservative second with 119 seats. This is tweaked a little bit, I think. I think there were 121. This was just before the last 5 or 6 seats were counted. So 400 seats on 33%, then 120 seats on 23%. So you drop down 10% and you lose 2/3, basically less. The Lib Dems, you had 12%, Reform higher, 14%, and only 4. And then you look at the weird combination of in Scotland and Northern Ireland, how you can win a seat on a minuscule percentage of the population. So those are the results. That's what we have with Labour with a 170 seat majority. The Conservatives routed. Rishi Sunak, little Sunak has stepped down, so he'll be no more. Lib Dems are in a very strong position. Greens have done well, getting 3 more up from 1. Reform have done well, but really they could have been so much better.
Well, this thing that the thing that I saw, and it's these figures that I couldn't understand why they have 4 when they have 4 million, and Lib Dems 71 and it's 3.4 million. I couldn't understand that, but then I thought it was just me, so I just thought maybe I don't know fully like all this politics stuff, because I just shut myself off from it, to be honest. I really do, because I just don't trust it, so I kind of can't take it seriously.
Oh no, you can't. You have to laugh at it, or else you cry. But so you have to laugh at it. But if Labour are doing well in the urban areas in the cities, and it's the same for the Warren posse watching over stateside. It's the Democrats doing well in those urban city areas, and the Republicans doing well in the rural areas. And the Conservatives are the same. In the Conservatives, it's the shires, it's the country areas that they do much better. And then you've got Birmingham and London being fully red. But I think one of the issues is reform, and every party. Actually, no. There are some parties that are more focused in areas like Lib Dems are more focused, I guess, in the southwest, and in certain parts of the UK. Labour have traditionally been the middle and the north. The Conservatives kind of have been a bit more in the south. But Reform really could have and should have taken those Brexit voting areas, which is a lot. So every party is good in certain areas. But the thing is, I think Reform, they came second in nearly 100 of those seats, and some of them were very close second. So I think that's one of the silver linings, that sets Reform up to launch forward, turning those number 2 seats into number 1 whenever people just get so pissed off at Labour. For me, that's one of the silver linings in it.
Oh, absolutely. It's certainly a confidence boost for them, because it's an insight for them to see, okay, we've come second here, so many places. It shows them that their message is getting across, and that actually people do want change. People do want to get rid of what we always get, which is Labour, Conservative. It's 2 cheeks of the same butt, as they say. It is. And that's why I want to believe that there will be change, but I just can't. I've detached myself so much from the system, and sort of, I think as well, the pandemic highlighted so much of the corruption within the government, and all of the backhanders, and the association and the affiliation with the PPE and all of that. And it's like, how can we trust these people when it just seems to be about money and status, and it's never really about the people, I don't feel.
Well, I agree, and I had decided there is no point in me voting. I will never vote for the Conservatives in my life ever again. And then looking around and thinking, well, if there was a Heritage Party candidate, I would maybe vote for them, because I like David and I agree with what he stands for. But that was it, and I was torn. And then as soon as Nigel steps in, then I said, okay, I'll vote for Reform. I think that was the feeling with many people across the country. And that swing that Nigel got in Clacton, biggest swing, I think, in British electoral history, from a hugely safe seat Tory over to Reform. I really think they can build, because it was what, 5-6 weeks notice, and Reform went from a standing start to having those candidates. So it does seem as though they have something in place, and certainly Nigel ticks a hell of a lot more boxes than Richard Tice does.
Oh, most definitely, 100%. But I also think, like, Nigel is, people are aware of Nigel and the whole Brexit history. You know, it's and again, that was a massive thing, because it was what was it, 52% or something like that. And I remember back then when that was going on, how they wanted to have a recount. Do you remember when there was people having outrage? They're like, no, we want to and it's like, no, you've got it. This is what it is. Brexit is Brexit. So I think Nigel has, people remember all of that, and that swings for him, but that also swings against him, with obviously those who wanted to stay and remain. So yeah, but I agree. Nigel is definitely a much more sort of hopeful representative to the people than Tice.
And well on to him. I'm looking forward to using my parliamentary pass to bump into him and see how that crew of 5 actually, to see how they do. I had 2 other takeaways. Don't know what your thoughts are on this. I had one takeaway was alternative media. I saw Lotus Eaters with Carl had bid 50,000 concurrent viewers for their election evening, and I'm sure other alternative media companies also had large viewings. And someone had posted some of them had 50,000. Navarro Media had 9,000, GB News had 7,000, LBC had 7,000. I think Sky News, I don't have it in front of me, I think they had around 15,000. The BBC, certainly, for if you look at online, they had around 30,000, I think. So it shows a move away to how people consume information. I think that's also a positive, because with Warham and MAGA, and with Bannon and Pisovich, and with Alex Jones, and the list goes on and on, in the US, how they've broken through directly to people and bypassed. I think we are seeing the same thing here. And of course, you look at Fox and Father, and you look at actually what that people viewing that, as opposed to like Talk TV, and you realize something is shifting. So I think that's another positive thing that we've seen from this election.
I think it's really good, and I think it's so important. And I also think there's a lot of that. There's so much lack of trust in the mainstream media now. And again, I think that roots back to the pandemic. And I think also with everything that's now coming out, people are like, hold on, you told us this, now this is happening. So, and I also think, because when people are presented with the alternative media, they get a different insight. They get truths that they don't get from the mainstream media. And so then they dig a little deeper. So then they get involved with watching, like you say, Alex Jones or Tucker. And when you hear about people getting cancelled as well for their opinions and for their viewpoints, which we are allowed, we should be able to say, it's freedom of speech. So to be cancelled for something that you've said, just because somebody disagrees with you, or just because it's not the narrative they're pushing, is, that highlights to people there's an injustice there, and that's not right. So therefore, I think that pushes them and sways them to the alternative media. And I also think that the alternative media gives people more viewpoints and more healthy debate, which they don't get on the mainstream media. And I think people are actually, pining for that. They need it, because a lot of things don't make sense. A lot of things are confusing. A lot of things are scaremongering. And people, that puts us in quite a low sort of state of mind. It can be quite depressing when people switch on the news. I don't watch the mainstream media anymore. I've stopped. I only watch alternative media now. And I also think that there's more sort of humanization in the alternative media, like Fox and Father. There's humor in it, as well as politics, as well as different debates. And it just shows as well, you can two people can disagree, but they can still love one another and have a friendship. So, and I think that as humans, there's something in us that is like, we need that. We need to feel like we're not being fed a load of rubbish, and that actually, you know, it's educational and it's informative and it's what we need.
I agree. And I think the US have had that personality based where people have tuned into Fox because, oh, it's a certain person on, or people really feel as though they've got a connection with Tucker or with Rogan or with Jones or with Bannon. I think we are beginning to move that way. We're much slower here in the UK. It's taken us a while to catch up. We
always do take a while to catch up with the States, don't we?
I know, but we don't have the flashbang, the jazz. I mean, you look at CPAC compared to a UK political conference, and that shows it. Although with Nigel and Reform, they're kind of jumping on that level of excitement and enthusiasm. But yeah, I think we're seeing a difference between actually people tuning in because they like the individuals, and it's not only the information, but it's the connection, the personality, and it's that humanist that we're seeing, and that's so different from mainstream media.
That's what I think it is. That's certainly how I feel personally. I like to watch it and feel like it's not sort of all sleek and flash. I actually like seeing, it's very refreshing watching the alternative media and seeing the different guests that people get on and the eclecticness, like that it's not just the same news reporters or the same speakers or the same political people on, and not giving the other parties people, you know, a chance to speak. I like the alternative media because they get lots of different people on, and it's just more, I find it more informative. I do.
100%. What, just one other, and I just couple of the points that I noticed from the election, and then we'll get on to a few other stories. But one of them was the vote share and the turnout. So Labour won 65% of seats on 35% of the vote. So you look at that disconnect, and maybe the most distorted election we've seen in our history. I've seen many people say that. And they secured a majority on the lowest vote share. I mean, Keir Starmer, I think his vote share went down by about half, down from like 25,000 to about 13,000, 14,000. So a massive fall. David Cameron got a higher share of the vote in the hung parliament. And you look back to from Boris Johnson all the way back to Ted Heath in 1970, and they all got a higher share of the vote. So you get 48 million people actually are registered to vote, and out of that 52% actually turned out to vote. So you've got 52% down. Actually, that's down 6%. But it means that if you have that many people, only half the people could be bothered to vote. So actually, instead of looking at 33% voted in Labour, you're looking at 20% voted Labour out of actually the population. The 48 million, if Labour only got 9.5 million, that's 20. So we have got a government with a huge majority who can do what they like on 20% of the public saying that's what we want. And you kind of sit back and you think, again, this is a disconnect. Something's not working.
Yeah.
A landslide government, 20% of the vote. It's crazy. It really is.
I also think it shows as well, again, the lack of trust and the lack of faith, because the amount of people that didn't turn out to bother voting because they didn't see, they just feel like, what's the point? And it would be quite good to have seen, actually, if everybody had voted, what we would have actually got. That'd be interesting, because even though people don't just think there's no point in voting and they didn't bother to vote, just to see if they did, who they would have voted for, it would have been interesting to see. But it's crazy that we've now got this person and this party in, and I'm actually quite worried for the first time in the whole of, you know, the elections, everything that I've lived through. I'm actually quite worried about what they're going to try and do and put us through. So I think we need to buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to be one hell of a ride.
Don't tell me you're concerned that David Lammy is now our foreign secretary. Why should that concern you?
Oh.
Just your thoughts on the Tories, because they have lost a lot of people. Liz Truss is gone, crazy. Grant Shapps, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Steve Baker, who actually I'm very glad about, Penny Mordaunt, and who can carry a sword better than Penny Mordaunt? But yeah, that even hasn't got it through.
Really warmed to her.
No. No. Whenever you've got what members of your family, some of the biggest activists for the trans agenda, no, I don't have any respect. Liam Fox has gone. A lot of Tories just made it. Rishi Sunak sadly just made it. There are a number of others that just made it. So actually, it looks like it's going to be a crazy fight between. Well, it could be between three women actually who stand out for the party on the right, and that's Priti Patel, that's Suella Braverman, and Kemi Badenoch. So what are your thoughts on where? Because sadly they failed in their zero seats policy. If only they had succeeded in their last policy to get 0 seats, but they got 120. They're left as a rump, but hugely kicked in the teeth and decimated. What are your thoughts on where they actually go? Because they're still not put out of their misery.
I don't really know. I really don't. I think they must have known that they were gonna get a beating, because so many people were fed up and done with it. So I actually think though that they did have some sort of sense of belief that they possibly somehow would have been safe, and that people would have still believed in the Conservatives. But yeah, I think that they were delusional.
Oh yeah.
And I just think as much as I think that the Conservatives really didn't do us any favors in the time that they had to do us, and make change, I really don't feel confident with Labour. So it's so hard, because I actually, like I said again, going back, I really don't believe in any of it. I don't believe in the system.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like we're so advanced now. They've had so many chances to put policies and, law, and that there's so many areas that they could have been more effective and done right by the people, and they just haven't. So I whoever is in there, I just feel like I can't trust you, and I won't trust you until you show me something that actually makes me believe in you.
100%. Let's show some. This is the opposite side. This is Nigel's kind of acceptance speech, and then we'll jump on David Lammy, who is, I guess, the second maybe most powerful man now in the UK, really, as foreign secretary, and he gets a little bit confused. But let's play just Nigel.
Officer, all here at tendering, and I have to say, fellow candidates, it's been a well-run, well-fought and remarkably clean election battle. I think we'd all agree on that, and thank you for your services. I promise that I will do my absolute best as a Member of Parliament. I had 20 years as an MEP, but it's not quite the same link or same responsibility with constituents. I will do my absolute best to put Clacton on the map. I'll do my best to bring more tourists. I'll do my best to try and bring some private investment. It's over 30 years ago that I fought my first parliamentary by-election, and I fought lots of them over the years, and I've had big successes in European elections and perhaps less so under first past the post, which is a very demanding, very, very demanding problem for smaller parties. I will say this, it's 4 weeks and 3 days since I decided to come out of retirement and throw my hat in the ring. I think what Reform UK has achieved in those just few short weeks is truly extraordinary. Given that we had no money, no branch structure, virtually nothing across the country. We are going to come second in hundreds of constituencies. How many seats we're going to win, I don't know. But to have done this in such a short space of time says something very fundamental is happening. It's not just disappointment with the Conservative Party. There is a massive gap on the centre-right of British politics, and my job is to fill it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. But it's not just what we do in Parliament as a national party that matters, it's what we do out round the country. Getting 5,000 people in that room in Birmingham last week, the energy, the optimism, the enthusiasm, the belief that Westminster is just completely out of touch with ordinary people says to me that my plan is to build a mass national movement over the course of the next few years and hopefully be big enough to challenge the general election properly in 2029. What is interesting is there's no enthusiasm for Labour, there's no enthusiasm for Starmer whatsoever. In fact, about half of the vote is simply an anti-Conservative vote. This Labour government will be in trouble very, very quickly. We will now be targeting Labour votes. We're coming for Labour, be in no doubt about that. I want to thank the team that have helped me do this over the last few weeks, my fellow candidates for behaving as impeccably as they have. Believe me, folks, this is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you. Thank you very much.
So that was Nigel's exam speech, and he certainly brings a lot. I think we both, Betty, have massive issues on what they did during lockdown. I think Tice would have us all held down and jabbed. But when you look at the others, actually, I think it's only probably Reform and the Green Party who really had people wanting them actively, really campaigning. They've got a support base where the other parties are, you don't seem to have that level of connection, activism, support. But yeah, we'll see what happens on that Nigel front, whether he can actually do anything with those 5 seats or not. Let me just play just on the other side of it is Lammy, David Lammy, getting a little bit confused. I think these are extremely important because they really don't understand anything, and truth, right and wrong, that's completely gone out the window. And any crazy thought in your head now can pretend to be a reality under Labour. And I think that's, Betty, where we get very confused and massively concerned. But this is David Lammy.
It's transphobic, but it's not accurate, Nick. I mean, obviously, it's probably the case that only that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix, I understand, is something that you can have following various procedures and hormone treatment and all the rest of it.
So you kind of can grow it. I didn't know that. Is this just like growing a plant or flowers? Do you just grow it like in the window, water the cervix?
I just can't. I'm sorry. I just can't take people like that seriously, because let's get back to basics. Okay. Everything he just said is incorrect. Okay. Yes, I know there's procedures that people can have, but that does not mean you suddenly grow and have biological female body parts. It's just, and this is the insanity. I switch off. I literally switch off, because when I hear that coming over the radio, or if I see it on social media, I'm just like, no, scroll on, because it's absolute tosh. Sorry, but it is. And let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it real. A woman is a woman. A man is a man. If a man chooses and wishes to identify as a woman, whether he has procedures or whether he just wears female clothing, that's up to him. However, it does not, no matter what anybody says, goes along with, follows the narrative, what have you, they biologically will never be a woman. It's as simple as that.
I'm glad you've cleared that up, because I was getting a little bit confused. I was thinking of growing a couple of cervixes and, selling them or something on eBay.
You can try and buy one if you want, people. Satisfied with what you get. That's all I'm going to say, because in reality, I think that if it makes you feel like by having a procedure that you have something, if it makes you feel better, fine. But the reality is it's not, you haven't got that. You haven't got what I have. Sorry to say.
Okay, well, thank you for disappointing me on that. So it was a pick and mix. But it's like the Nick Ferrari asking politicians if you've got, well, even the terminology. So and I don't really understand it. If you stick with someone who's born a man, and then you go from there, and then you know what they are and who they are. But this trans woman, I think, well, sorry, does that mean they're one or the other? But Nick Ferrari saying, whatever, a trans woman wanting to use the bathroom and they have a penis, but they're supposed to use the ladies, and which one do they use? And the politicians just could not say. And that's what I like about someone like Nigel, that actually he'll just call it as it is. And he may have limits on other areas, but actually on that, he'll just call it as it is. And you look at the politician, you think, you poor people, you're utterly, utterly confused. And sadly, these individuals who are going through this, there's no way you can now help them in society, because before you used to say, okay, you've got an issue, let's sit down and work through your issue. But if, as they will, Labour will ban conversion therapy, which means you're banning sitting down, having a conversation with someone to help them through their issues. That's what, and this term conversion therapy, it sounds like, electric shock treatment. It's simply people being able to go and sit down with someone and to talk through their issues. That would be illegal under Labour. And yet that's the way through this, to actually sit down and help people through their issues. That's what it is. People who are having issues.
Yeah, and I think it's dangerous, actually, because where you said that these poor politicians are confused. I don't think they're confused. I think that they are following and they're peddling the narrative because they don't want to step out of the barn of speaking up and saying what's actually right and what's fact. And I also think it's dangerous because you're right about the therapy. People need to sit down and talk about it. They need the help. They're feeling confused. They don't understand, the body dysmorphia, whatever it is that is making them feel that way. They should sit down and talk. We shouldn't skip that step and just go straight to, okay, you can mutilate your body and, you can have all of these life-changing operations that you can't ever go back from. It's enabling. I find it's that they're just enabling it, and they're actually pushing forward. They're skipping steps and pushing forward to the more dangerous and life-changing. Because if somebody then decides, hold on, actually, I didn't actually really properly talk or get it out or get the help that I needed. I didn't actually want to go through all of that. There's no going back. Excuse the fly. I've got my back. I've got my back door open. Even though climate change isn't working for me right now, because it's just like raining and stormy, even though it's the middle of July. But I've got my back door open because my dogs go in and out, and I've just got all these I had just had a butterfly and like oh god.
I'm waiting for dogs to appear, but maybe
they're around, so they think I'm insane because there's nobody here. They can hear your voice, but there's nobody. They can't see anybody, so they think I'm just this mad lady talking to myself.
So sometimes I feel we're all like that. So I really do. So it's not just you.
I don't mind.
And when I said politicians are confused, I think complicit is also part of that. Confused is maybe being absolutely too fair, and there may be some of them, but others are actively pushing this evil. And you're right, detransitioners coming out, Chloe Cole and others, and we're going to have a wave of legal actions in the future, and people will look back at history and think, how were we so evil? How do we abuse our children so badly by pushing them through these procedures where there are no adults in the room? And the chickens will come home to roost. And I hope those people who come out, as Jordan Peterson says, are put away for life and never let out again.
Yeah, they will. And this is the thing, I share a lot of stuff, like at the start of this, you shared the meme that I put up about the 72 genders. And I get a lot of people calling me transphobic and anti-trans. And I'm not at all. I'm all for, people, adults doing as they wish and whatever they want. But when they're trying to push agendas and ideologies onto us and they're trying to ram it into our brains like this is normal and that this is how the world is going to be now, I go the other way. I instantly am like, hold on, no, because I know what is fact and what is biology, and I don't need somebody telling me and saying that there's now 72 genders. If there are, then I obviously didn't go to the correct school. I didn't get the correct education because I was taught male and female. That's it. And when I get called transphobic, I try and explain to people, I'm not transphobic. I'm actually trying to stand up for the children, because when they're pushing this in schools and they're also making that it's all over TikTok and, and all kids have access to, their teachers, the information, they believe what they're told and they see a lot and they are influenced by TikTok and other social media outlets. And we need to protect the children, because it's the children who, if they go through these transition and these procedures, these life-changing procedures, then they decide when they're, a bit more grown up, they want to detransition and that it was just a phase they were going through, or they just needed some help, or they were just confused. They can never, they've mutilated themselves, and the adults around them allowed that and enabled that. And that's wrong, because they can then never go back to being able to have children. It's life-changing. It's life-changing. And I just think that we have to protect the children, and saying that you don't want this agenda and ideology pushed on the next generation, I don't think that's transphobic at all. I think it's actually safeguarding children. We should let children be children, let them grow up, let them become adults, let them decide what career they want to do, who they want to love and where they want to live. That's when they're adults. As children, we are here to protect them and to guide them and to make sure that no harm comes to them. And as far as I'm concerned, any politician or any person, teacher, healthcare worker that pushes this on young children, they are dangerous, and it's wrong.
I agree. And as Billboard Chris says, children cannot consent to puberty blockers, and children are not born in their own body. And we need to move away from this destructive thinking. This was a post by which you'd retweeted by June Slater, and I
love June.
Agree. I'm convinced far right is the new term for not actually being insane.
Yes.
That just said what you're saying, but taking it a little step further.
Yeah, no, I love June, and I think she is spot on, which is why I retweeted it. And it's right. Because you don't go along with the insanity. You're automatically like labeled far right. Oh, they're far right. I shared something, I can't remember what it was. It was a while ago, and somebody had quote tweeted it. She's clearly far right, and I just thought, oh my God. But then also the Daily Mail label me a conspiracy theorist because I have my own opinion and viewpoint on something, which I'm allowed. And, being told that, all the different things that they've called me a conspiracy theorist for, that I've said, well, actually, did that happen? Or actually, I'm not sure it did happen, because I need more evidence, because there's evidence that it didn't happen. So therefore, my opinion is I don't really believe that it happened. That makes me a conspiracy theorist, because I don't believe in something, or because I say that, 9/11 was an inside job. It's just, it's mad, because I get called a conspiracy theorist, you get called far right. And it's like, actually, I'm just okay with having my own opinion and not following the crowd. And I'm not scared to say that I don't believe in this, or I don't believe in that, or actually my opinion's different to this. So label me whatever they want. I really don't care. I really don't, because I think it's mad if you are following the herd. I think it's more insane to keep peddling this divisive, destructive ideologies and going along with just accepting whatever, because if you go against it, you're racist, or you go against it, you're transphobic, or homophobic. It's like, no, actually, it's just, I see it for what it is, and this is my opinion. Just leave the labels at the door with your ego.
I agree. And the one thing I'm happy at the Daily Mail for is introducing you to me, because I read that and thought, this sounds a great person. I need to get them on the podcast. So thank you, Daily Mail. Whoever wrote this story, thank you, because I read through it. I thought, this sounds like my type of person. I'd love to get them on as a guest. So yeah. Thank you, Daily Mail.
Yeah, I think the guy was called Rory Tingle.
Thank you, Mr. Tingle.
Yes, and I don't think he's a fan of mine, because he did 2 hit pieces on me, and he basically just regurgitated the same sort of story, just tried to make me out to be a little bit more radical, and I don't feel like I actually live up to it. So I feel like I need to kind of now start being more radical.
Yes. You need to be more far right. You do. You're not enough. Come on. We'll work on that.
My close friends were like, they're making you out sound like that's a bad thing when it's not. And I'm like,
I know. You read through the things, you're going, yep. And then suddenly, and this is why they're awful. You think, sorry, I missed a step completely. Let's go back and go through those. Those are all good. That's what we want. Bonkers.
Thinking for yourself is a bad thing, apparently.
I know. This was interesting tweet by Loza, and it's interesting how the media attack certain people and others are left alone. I said there are a set of 2 totally different standards in public life. Incitement to murder is fine, apparently. Incitement not to shag someone is a mortal sin. The cosy little establishment always looks after his own. And that was after the BBC presenter talked about assassinating Trump, or called on Biden to. And you kind of look at this, and how is calling for incitement to murder, how is that completely acceptable? But having a view on something else is not. And I think that did show whenever that was put out, and lots of people retweeted his comments, which we quickly deleted. But you kind of come across some examples and you think that shows what we're up against. That shows the divide, and that shows it is a them and us. It is common sense people, and it is those at the top. And it is the establishment, and it is a certain section within our media that drive the narrative. So yeah, when I read this, I thought, wow, it shows the divide.
100% it does. And it shows how, as well, it's one rule for one rule for the other. And they also, if they want to destroy somebody, and they want to cancel somebody, and they want to create a villain, the media will. And anything you read about such, person that is cancelled or painted as the villain, they will be negative. They'll never be a positive. So, for instance, how Lawrence gets treated. And, he was cancelled for his opinion, and cancelled for saying that, we're a welcoming country. And, how that is a bad thing to say. And, he's been called everything, and he takes it and he deals with it, very well. But it's not right. It's really not. And it does show how it shows the manipulation of the media as well, how they can say this person's bad, this person's horrible, don't like this person, because they're scared and they have to shut them down. They have to silence the voice. It's extraordinary, actually, that they have the power to do that, and how somebody can go on and say that somebody should be murdered, and how that they're not vilified for that, and how they don't get cancelled. And I'm not promoting that they do get cancelled. I'm just saying that the difference in the treatment between somebody saying they wouldn't shag somebody to somebody saying that somebody should be murdered, it's like, where do we draw the line, and where is the fairness in that? And there isn't, because if you're okay with murder, that's the end of the line. You're okay with anything goes. That person can say whatever, because isn't that the worst that you could say? Isn't that the worst thing you could say about another human being, is that you wish them dead, or so I think that's definitely worse than saying you don't want to jump into bed with somebody.
I thought so, but maybe I missed something again. I don't know.
person in the bed is alive. You know, that is just, it's crazy. But I also think it shows how the alternative media is so needed. It is required, because the mainstream media will go, this is okay. Where was the outrage with that guy?
Yeah.
Where was the outrage like that Lawrence got? It, like Lawrence saying what he said on GB News, the outrage was phenomenal. It was ridiculously over, like, exploded on.
It's orchestrated.
I know. It also, that to me shows they've already cast you as the villain. So anything they write or anything they put out, anything you say, they will twist it. They will make it bad. Even if you say something good and positive, they're going to twist it, and or they won't even talk about it if it's a positive. And for example, when he announced our engagement, the Daily Mail did the next day the hit piece.
I read it.
So instead of them just leaving us alone, or not even being able to say something saying, oh, Lawrence Fox has got engaged, they had to make a twist on it and had to make a negative and had to say she's a crazy, mad conspiracy theorist and that's who he's engaged to. Because it's like, oh, we don't want it to look good that he's happy in his life and that he's got somebody nice and somebody loves, you know, they love each other, and she loves him, and she's accepted his proposal. Instead of that, which is all positive, they have to try and make a negative spin on it because they've cast him as the villain. So I completely agree with what he said there, because he's absolutely spot on about the establishment. And I hope that stories like that and that man's actions show and highlights people how manipulative the media are, and how the establishment, it's one rule for them and one rule for the rest of us. If you have common sense, you use your voice and you speak up against the establishment, you are automatically labelled the villain or a conspiracy theorist or a racist or homophobic, whatever the list of ists are, you're going to be one of them if you don't go along and follow the narrative and, you know, sort of, you know, pay into the establishment.
100%. Ladies Bridges, last one, we'll just mention it. We'll not really go into it because we are out of time. And is this Boy 12, and this was just I think last Sunday, so we just missed it, I think, on our news review. But Boy 12 referred to prevent officers by a school after declaring there are only two genders. 12-year-old being investigated by counter-extremism officers after he said there are only two genders. He made that in an online post. There's no such thing as non-binary. And then it goes on and on. He said, I'm not gay and not queer. So, and this is not regarded as homophobic. Prevent, just for the viewers, Prevent was set up to combat Islamic terrorism. That's originally why it was set up, and now it's widened because they need to find those who are not following the Islamic faith, so they can actually say, actually, the problem is right-wing terrorists or children of 12, talking about gender. But that fits in what we said earlier, but the people being put on databases and now tracked and followed, children, that kind of where, it's not where we're going, but where we are. And I'm sure, Betty, you're on a couple of databases somewhere, and the more you speak up common sense.
I'm sure I am. I'm sure I'm on quite a few. I think this is complete insanity, Peter. I really do. I mean, where were Prevent when Lee Rigby was walking down the road? Yeah. It is just ridiculous. He's 12 years old. Give the boy a medal. He knows biology, clearly. You know, I hope his biology teacher gives him a certificate. I can't even, I will never understand how the people that work for those organizations, how do they feel when they're knocking on these people's doors? We need to speak to your 12-year-old son. It's absolute, utter madness. Go and actually do something effective. Go and do something productive. Go and do something that is actually going to have a positive effect on keeping us safe in this country against what they're supposed to be working against. Not going to schools and telling a 12-year-old lad who clearly knows far more than these adults around him do, that there are two genders, and just he's allowed to say that. He's allowed to think that. And
Make him prime minister.
A database at 12, because by the time he's 20, if he's speaking like this now at 12, it's also dystopian, isn't it? It's like by the time he's 20, he could be far right, he could be a conspiracy theorist. It's like, no, he has common sense. And I'm actually proud that there are youngsters, and I'm finding more and more of it. The more youngsters that I'm around, and my friends and family, and they're like, oh, there's this ridiculous stuff at our school they're trying to implement, or they're trying to tell us this. And I spoke up in class and said, no, I don't agree with that. And I'm like, yes, we've got the people of the future speaking up now because they see through it. Thank God. And that's why I think, we have to make a stand against this ideology being pushed on the younger ones in nursery and primary school, because that's why they're going for the younger ones to get in the brain from a very young age, because then it's easier for them to kind of control them and push that agenda on them. So hats off to the young lad.
Yeah,
and to the organizations, I'm sorry, I just can't. It's just insanity.
It is insanity, and we're going to get that.
If you worked for Prevent, wouldn't you think, if you got that through as a report, okay, this is what we're working on today, I would go, absolutely not. We are not going to see a 12-year-old because he said their words, and he's allowed to say those words. It's like counter-terrorism, like, oh my God, it's mad.
I would actually go and visit him to ask if he could come and speak to that group of Prevent officers to teach them. That's what I would do to negate Stonewall's effect. That would be the best thing.
Him out for lots of schools and outlets, give educational speeches, because he clearly knows more than they do.
Well, he does. Betty, thank you as always for coming on. Just leave people with this is another one of your recent posts, the power of stepping away, and just imagery to make you think of actually how do you participate in society, and sometimes we need to actively think how we engage and not hide away. So the power of stepping away is a great image and makes you think, as do many of your posts. Thank you. As always, people can follow you on Twitter. Always appreciate your time. So thanks.
Thank you so much for having me, Peter. It's always good fun.